What's up with romance anime? Now, the romance genre in my opinion has to be one of the most oversaturated genres out there. I honestly think it's up there with the isekai genre. So much romance comes out each anime season, you would think that these anime studios had employees working in assembly lines animating this shit. Now, I'm not saying that this is bad or that all romance is bad, because it's obviously not true. There's some really good stuff out there like Love is War, Your Name, A Silent Voice, and a bunch of other stuff that most people generally agree are good or great romance anime. But again, there's a lot of bad ones as well, so I decided to go on Crunchyroll and pick 3 random ass romance animes that popped up and rank them against each other. The 3 anime that I'm going to watch are Our Dating Story, The Experienced You and The Inexperienced Me, Okado Gals Are Super Adorable, and finally Alia Sometimes Hides Her Feelings in Russian. These 3 have very long titles and they also sound silly, but we're going to see which one's the best, which one's in the middle, and finally which one's the worst out of all of them. And we're going to start off with Okado Gals Are Super Adorable, so let's see what's up. Okado Gals Are Super Adorable is a typical slice of life romance anime. The story follows Tsubasa Shiki, who moves from Tokyo to Hokkaido and tries to adjust to his new environment. Shortly after arriving, he meets Minami Fuyuki, a friendly, outgoing girl who quickly becomes his main love interest. And the cast eventually expands to include Sayuri Akino, a shy and reserved girl, and Rena Natsukawa, a smart student fascinated by traditional Japanese culture. And while they could be considered romantic rivals, the show doesn't really lean too heavily into that dynamic. Instead, it's clear that Tsubasa is kind of just friends with all of them, and his feelings very much lean more towards Minami, which is kind of refreshing as their relationship is just kind of drama-free and they remain close friends throughout the series, which is, I think, a good change of pace. The anime itself doesn't have any major conflicts or dramatic twists. I think the biggest moments of tension are when our main character is told he's going to have to go back to Tokyo if he doesn't get a good grade on the test, or at the end when Minami announces that she's going to study abroad, and Tsubasa, thinking that she'll be gone for a long time, makes this dramatic rush to the airport to say his final goodbyes, only to find out that she's only leaving for like 2 weeks. It's a lighthearted moment and it fits the tone of the show, and it's overall just kind of wholesome. Overall, the anime itself is enjoyable in simplicity, but it does have some flaws. For example, the pacing feels rushed, and as I watched it, I felt like something was off, or missing to say the least, and I decided to look into it a little bit and found out that it's due to some cuts from the manga, and these cuts were pretty important if you ask me. It affected character development and stuff like that, and made some moments feel a little bit less impactful in the show. I can only assume it was to fit everything into a 12-episode anime, or budget cuts or something. I can't say for sure, but it leaves the chances for a season 2 kind of iffy. The show also doesn't really have too much progression. Tsubasa never confesses his feelings, and the story ends almost where it started. While this kind of works for the slice of life kind of genre, it may disappoint someone looking for a more definitive romance, but it's not like it's uncommon either. I think the main problem is that I doubt there'll be a second season to further explore the show and stuff like that, but who knows. That said, Okado Gals Are Super Adorable is a cozy watch if you're looking for something lighthearted and wholesome. However, if you're seeking for something deeper, maybe go read the manga. I can't really recommend that because I haven't read it myself, but maybe it's worth checking out. But that being said, let's move on to the next anime, and that being Our Dating Story, The Experienced You and The Inexperienced Me. I'm going to start off with a bold statement, alright? This one isn't good, and I really didn't enjoy it, and here's why. So the premise itself leans to the more bizarre side of romance. Our protagonist, Ryuto Kashima, and I can't pronounce his name for the life of me, is forced to ask out his crush Runa Shirakawa after losing a bet, and everyone in his friend group is kind of expecting him to get rejected, but to everyone's shock, she says yes, right? Kind of your typical romance trope, right? But this is where things start to get a little weird. Now, the show establishes that there are already some really nasty rumors about Runa, and you would think that those would get kind of dismissed, but no, instead the show doubles down on them, and on the same day that they start dating, Runa invites Ryuto to her house, and while they're hanging out in her room, she just starts undressing, fully prepared to sleep with the dude. And I guess credit to Ryuto for declining, saying that he wants to wait until they're ready, but this setup makes the entire plot revolve around them, building up their relationship essentially to eventually do the dirty. Now that's kind of weird to say the least, alright? At least in my opinion. But from there, the story falls into the usual romance tropes, dates, awkward moments, all that. But the problem is that it throws in an overwhelming number of subplots, and all of them feel rushed and poorly executed. For example, subplot A, you get introduced to this girl named Maria Kurose? I don't know. But Maria is Runa's sister, and she's out of the picture because of their parents' divorce, and they just weren't living together, so she just kind of randomly gets introduced. But it turns out that Maria used to have feelings for Ryuto, and tries to sabotage her sister by dressing up as her and spreading rumors to try to break up the relationship. Like, what? Then you have subplot B. The show attempts to fix Maria and Runa's relationship, as well as repair their parents' relationship. This one makes a bit more sense, except the parents' relationship, that one's just kind of random, but it's, again, poorly executed. There's also an unnecessary arc about fixing a friendship between one of Runa's friends and one of Ryuto's friends, and these subplots just feel really crammed into the 12-episode runtime, and it leaves little room for proper development or resolution. it's just chaotic and it just takes away from the main story. Not that there really is a main story to begin with. That being said, there is one scene that stood out to me, and when I first started watching, I was curious if they were ever going to address the fact that Runa has been with a lot of guys in the past, and well, it turns out they did in a pretty mature way, well, as mature as this show can get. But Ryuto and Runa are at a festival, and Runa starts breaking down, crying about how her past experience with other guys makes her feel kind of unworthy of Ryuto's love, or whatever the fuck, and she's upset that she can't share these first moments with him, like first time eating like food together at a festival, each time watching the fireworks, all that. And Ryuto responds with a surprisingly mature and comforting line. As mature, like I said, as mature as you can get for this kind of story. He hits her with the quote, "Even if you experience something with someone else, if you feel something new and different when you do it with me, then I'm happy, really happy." I mean, this almost felt out of place in this fucking show. I was like, no way this guy just said that. And I think it's a genuine take on how past relationships may affect new ones, and I was kind of surprised. Not that this is like redeeming the whole show in itself, but it was a surprising moment to say the least. Overall, I really can't recommend our dating story. The pacing is rushed, the subplots feel forced, and the central relationship doesn't have enough meaningful development to, even make up for the flaws. Maybe the manga handles these elements better, but as it stands, the anime feels incomplete, unfocused, but if you're curious for some reason, go ahead and watch it, but this one ranks really low for me. Finally, we have Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian. This show completely threw me in for a fucking loop, bro. I was not expecting what we got at all. Going in, I assumed it was a typical romance, but after watching it, I realized it leaned more towards a drama, where romance is more of a byproduct than the central focus. But still, I watched it, so I might as well rank it, right? The story revolves around Masachika Kuze, our main character, and Alyssa, I'm not even going to try pronouncing her name, but here it is. I'm going to continue to call her Alia throughout, for simplicity's sake, but Alia and Masachika have a wholesome and fun dynamic. She very much pretends not to like the dude, but as the title suggests, she often hides her feelings and flirts with Masachika in Russian, thinking that he doesn't understand a single word what she's saying. But what she doesn't know is that Masachika does understand Russian thanks to a childhood friend of his that he had, but unfortunately that subplot isn't explored, which seems to be a common theme with these 12-episode anime. The plot itself is centered around the student council president election, where Masachika helps Alia campaign against their rival. Their opponent is Masachika's sister, Yukiso or Yukisuo, I forget. However, no one else knows that they're siblings, which leads to some really fucking what the fuck moments. Yuki herself is a bizarre character, and she maintains the image of being a proper and respectable student, but secretly she's a huge fucking nerd with the over-top affection for her brother. A little bit too much so, and it's so exaggerated and ridiculous that it's kind of funny in some aspects, and it's hard to take her seriously at all. And I do think that's one of the show's strengths is its humor. It's very self-aware and it often leads into the weirdness in somewhat of an endearing way, and I think the show itself knows it's cringe, which kind of adds to it. And for some reason, everyone's always beefing with Masachika, bro, but he's a pretty swell guy. While the plot is more engaging than some of the other shows I've reviewed, it does suffer from leaving too much unexplored. Both Masachika and Alia have hints of deeper backstories, but they're only teased and never really fully developed, which for a 12-episode runtime, that's understandable, but it doesn't really feel crammed in there, but it just kind of makes it so there's a lot of loose ends. Like, there's potential tension between Alia and her sister due to both of them liking the same dude at different points in their lives, or Alia's belief that she has to be independent in everything she does, or how Masachika and her sister, even though they care about each other deeply, there's some fucked up shit within their family, like their grandparents or whatever, and like I said, a lot of that isn't really explored because, well, obviously the short runtime. Overall, the show stands out as one of the funniest on the list, with plenty of room for more character development and story progression. I think this one honestly has the best chance of a season 2, but a lot of the time it feels like these 12-episode romance animes just won't for whatever reason. But if it does, it would maybe tie up more ends or maybe be more seasons, I don't know. But this one's enjoyable. If you want to understand this show better for yourself, just go watch it to understand what I'm talking about. But yeah. Alright, some final thoughts about these three are that all three of them kind of suffer from the same thing. The show tries to tie up everything in a nice neat bow towards the 12th episode, but it's simply not possible because you can't get to everything you want to develop in 12 episodes, at least most of the time with these shows. And it clearly sets up another season, or at least tries to, but it seems very doubtful that that will happen. But now it's time for the final ranking, starting from best to worst. And number 1 spot we have Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian. Like, whoa, could have seen this one coming. This one was kind of in a league of its own, and I realized that while watching it, but I shall put it in the rankings regardless. Number 2, we have Hokkaido Gals Are Super Adorable. Also probably to no one's surprise. This one leans into a more cozy romance anime, more run-of-the-mill, and it's done well, not bad, but it's nothing crazy either. And finally, in the worst tier is Our Dating Story, The Experienced You, and The Inexperienced Me. This one just sucked, and I will not clarify any further. But yeah, there you have it. If you made it this far into the video, first of all, thank you. But second of all, it's been over almost a year exactly since I've last uploaded. I needed to take a break for multiple reasons, but I'm back for the most part. I can't promise a consistent schedule, but I will try to upload more frequently. But besides that, thanks again for watching my video, man. I'll see what I can do. But yeah, subscribe and all that shit.